is a personal meeting.
Sure.
If you'd like to do that, that means, and if more people come, but what do you think, Cindy? Do you think it's the weather?
It probably is, but you're gonna have to get started regardless, even if they come in late. So if they come in late, I could send them the video.
Well, we don't, in a sense, if we just do this, I mean, I can give you a quick overview, and then we can just go from there.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just,
And so I'll somewhat give it for the video as well. Okay, so this is agency for middle school students and teenagers. And you know, usually what when we use the word agency here, it just suggests that you own your own life. You know how to take steps to grow and to thrive and to become a good person. I'm in charge, as opposed to other influences. I don't mean mom and dad. Other influences that are going to tamp down the ownership that you have it and make you conform to things that are not productive. And I think, you know, especially in our culture, in American culture, the few things you have to know about children that are true. And it's important to know what's true about children, because otherwise you make decisions that don't match who they are. And I think there's three things that I've come across, both historically and in scientifically literature, and that's number one, all of the children want to grow and become better and better and better. They just love to grow, and they love to thrive, and that's so important. Because sometimes when especially we talk about agency, you know, we say, oh, my son's so lazy, my daughter doesn't want to do anything, and that may happen temporarily. But actually, the way they're made is to grow. They want to grow. They love to achieve. They love to get better at things. And that's what we want them to own. Their ownership is in that feeling about life. Then, of course, there's two things that work against that. So you have to know the other side of that. One is what a scholar named Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi calls entropy. In other words, I like everything the way it is right now. I'm very comfortable. I'm very at peace. Don't make me do something more. It's human. And ironically, that's, of course, so when we get an opportunity or a challenge, that goes through our head too. Oh, but the work. Oh gosh, the time. There's just a part that I'm comfortable. You know, it's interesting. I read a book not too long ago called True Believers, and talking about where great movements happen. You know, communism, Marxism, fascism, doesn't come from the poor. A lot of times we think revolution comes from the poor. It doesn't come from the poor because of stasis. Their life is so bare that please don't do anything. At least I have food each day and I have clothing. Do not cause trouble. That's stasis. And it's usually other segments of the population that will push for change, revolution, or something like that. But it's so powerful. You just and you have to know that about the kids. You know, you gave a good example of your daughter. So she's a measurer. When shall I participate? You're figuring it out. That's kind of stasis there. And you know, one by one she ventures out by encouragement for home, and then I like what I can accomplish, what I can do. And so when we're dealing with them, if we don't realize that's there, then we could attribute, oh well, when you don't want to work, you're just lazy. You're just this. We'll think things negative of them, instead of recognizing, no, that reaction's normal. Now, how do we get them to take ownership? Then, of course, the third thing about agency is there are all kinds of easy and debilitating activities that they're surrounded by. It's just easier. It's easier to watch a movie. It's easier. Not that any of these things are wrong. Social media, hanging out at the mall, whatever it is. These are not evil or bad, but they can capture the children and then drain all their energy. So then when they want to set a goal, not now, I don't want to bother with that. And we see that all the time. And so when we're talking about ownership, then one, we want to put them on a track of growing and feeling good about the growing, and it matches them. And this part I think is very important. Not many people realize, we make kids work really hard at Birchwood. And especially it only gets more and more challenging the older they get. And so your first thought is, wow, you really demand a lot. And my response is, that's right. Talk to the children when they're finished with History Day, with future problem solving, with math counts, with power of the pen. Ask them if they want to do it next year. And they all do. Because of the satisfaction, hard work, and accomplishment. Wow, you cannot lose track of that. That is so important. So, because also then through this process, you can imagine if you're going to take ownership, well, there's a little bit of pressure, there's a little bit of worry, there's a little bit of anxiety, there's the possibility of failure. So it's become typical in America, okay, let's not put any of that in front of the children. Just make them happy. Well, you're violating what they want. They want a high level achievement. And even though the process is hard, it's difficult, they give up free time, they push themselves, the attainment is 10 times greater than the enjoyment they would have gotten from some of the, pleasures of life, we'll call them maybe. So when we're working with the children, then there's 3 things to keep in mind with the kids. Number 1, when we talk about ownership, it starts with responsibility. What are your responsibilities? And it has to be manageable, depending on how old they are. Like school, to me, school's your job. You don't have a choice. And so I don't like school. Yeah, well, Daddy doesn't like some things at work, but it's your responsibility. Or if you have multiple children at home, and you're the oldest sibling, you have to take care of your little brother. I don't like him. Doesn't matter. That's your responsibility. Or if Daddy says, clean out the garage this weekend, and then you can go play. I don't want to clean out the garage. Okay, that's all right, I understand it. But go clean it out. That's your responsibility. So there's the ownership. If they're going to have agency about their life, then they have to understand the first level of every place I go, I have a responsibility. I can't be in a group or an institution and then, okay, what are you going to do for me? No. You go to a class, you have responsibility. You go to recess, you have a responsibility. So they should always be aware that I have things that I must do as a part of my life. That's baseline. So even little children can learn this. And it's not the only thing though. Then the second piece is you're always growing. You're heading somewhere. Could be in academics, it could be in sports, it could be in music, could be in art, theater, could be all kinds of areas. But you have goals and you're growing toward those goals, always. And this becomes an answer. So if all my buddies are gonna go visit a mall and hang out at the mall all day, but I already made a little pact, I'm going to enter the writing contest that's coming up. So I've got to make a decision to set aside the pleasures. Okay, I just have to spend 2 hours on Saturday writing this piece or polishing this piece. So it becomes the power to face the things that would debilitate or become easy, and you waste your energy. I like the word enervate, E-N-E-R-V-A-T-E. In other words, it just drains your energy. I'm like that, I love sports. So if I sit down and watch a wrestling tournament or I watch a football game, when it's all done, you know what I want to do? Nothing. Of course, we need that in our life. Everybody needs some kind of comforting recreation to go like that. But there's always a danger that it takes over. So once you have goals, once you're headed somewhere, that allows you to mitigate the things that drain your energy. So you'll still do them, but only so much. And so as a part of that growth and where you're going and having goals is a really big one. And this is mostly done through just general conversations. William Damon has a whole book on this. It's called The Purpose of Life. And this is not religious, this because this belongs to the family, but to begin sowing seeds into young teenagers. What's your life for? How will you contribute to the world, to your family, to your grandma and grandpa? You're inspiring to think about how their life will become a blessing to others. And there is so much documented research, this is not my thought, of children who have purpose in their life. They're the ones who achieve, they're the ones who who do not get caught up with negative influences, who are productive not only in their own life, but toward the people that are around them. But they have to have that thought. You have to have that thought. What's your life all about? Not that we tell them. You can't step in and say, you're gonna be a lawyer or whatever. But you have to think about how could you someday be such a blessing to the world? And then who knows what? But at least the thought is there, that the world's not about me. Yes, I am important, I wanna grow, I wanna take agency for my life and who I'm gonna be, yet let's lift it one step higher. To become I like the word blessing, even if it has a little bit of a religious connotation. You just do good when wherever you're at. Your thought is, how do I make things better? How do I make things better? Okay, so now the last piece is how. How do we go about this? And I would put this primarily in the realm with children, with building a strong conversational relationship. When they're little, they just do what you tell them to do. So they say, how come I gotta do this? Because I told you. I'm not gonna argue with you. You just do it. But as time goes by, and they get to be 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 years old, they need more than that. They need reasoning. And to understand how you look at the world through conversation becomes how they look at the world. So casual conversations about your goals and how can daddy help you? How can mommy help you? What do you plan to do with your violin lessons? What are your goals? Oh, I'd like to be in the youth orchestra someday. Okay, good. I'm gonna help you with that. Or, I'd like to go to the Institute of Music, or I wanna be on the math counts team when I'm in the 8th grade. All those, okay, let's talk about it. How would we get there? So there's the conversations about where they're going. And what do they learn through that conversation? Their greatest cheerleader is mom and dad. Mom and dad aren't just giving you orders. They're your cheerleaders. They're on your team. And that's, can happen around the dinner table, it can happen trip to McDonald's, but they know you're someone that they can talk to. That's one. And that relates both to establishing goals, overcoming entropy. But a third part I have found is very, very valuable, especially in today's modern age, and that's to rehearse with children the things that could undermine their life. When they go to high school, there's all kinds of things. Get invited to parties, and they go on dates, and all kinds of things can happen in that realm. If mom and dad don't coach them about the bad things that could happen, not just scare them, that doesn't work. Coach them when they go to a party. Well, what could happen at the party? They could come on in.
Somebody was coming in.
What could happen on the party? If you go on a date, okay, that's wonderful. Also, honey, what could happen? You join a club, or you go on a vacation. You are their partner to help them navigate. You have your experience. So you know the things that occur, and children get trapped. I had 3 girls. My wife and I were very clear what can happen at parties, what can happen about conversations at school that are not healthy. Okay, they really don't want to be involved in something that will hurt them, but they don't have tools. And so the conversation become the kind of tools that you need to give them to face the challenges and the temptations. And if they're with a group of friends saying, oh, this whole go to high school, go to college is a bunch of baloney, well, they need to be able to answer that, how they're different. And it's through the conversations that you equip them. Doesn't mean they're not still going to do bad things, but they'll be bothered in their conscience when they do, which is important. Conscience is like mommy and daddy going with them everywhere, and they don't see them. I often in the past I would use the example of son or daughter. They head off to a party, and they know right away this is not a good party, but you've talked with them. So they can't say no to the party. It's too awkward, too hard not to. But the whole time they're sitting there in the back of their mind wondering, is my dad gonna walk through the door? Is my mom gonna walk through the door? We're not, but because their conscience, through your conversations, they know what's right. So they may slide over and get involved in something they shouldn't, but their conscience is able to pull them back. So real quickly, the children have natural inclinations to take control of their life. That's what they want to do. Be owners, to own their life. And so that is taking on responsibilities. Daily, common, normal responsibilities in every single environment. We owe something. And then having goals in our life, and then eventually have purpose. So that's the framework. How do we do with time here? Not bad. 15 minutes. So the whole time is yours if you have questions. I'd be interested how living in Korea was a big help to me. How to look at life, because it just opened doors. I'm an American, 25 years old, and then I see another way of living life. So I'd be interested in your understanding of agency, or if you have questions about what I've said, either one is okay.
I think my parents are not typical Korean parents who already have all the life plan from the birth to marriages and children's retirement and try to put us in the track. But my parents, even though they're working class people, and my mother barely graduated from the elementary school, and my sister and I, we grew up in the predominantly working class neighborhood at that time. And my parents trust us in terms of what we decide and what we like to do, and they did their best to support that. I know I wish I could be a painter, but studying art in South Korea is super expensive. So
Yeah.
my dad, he said, well, this is our income and this is how much we spend monthly, and I'm sorry we cannot send you to the art school. It costs like $400 per month. So I accept that. So we understand that, and the lack of ability of my mother to be the more proactive parent, because she believes she is functionally illiterate. So whenever we need a paper to bring to school, my sister and we forged her signature and wrote our own letters pretending it's written by mom. My mom knew that. But what happened in the end is my sister, she's a writer and journalist. So our skills never go away. And we appreciate they trust us, whether or not it's because they did not have enough experience in the field of what we like to explore. But we appreciate that. But at the same time, what we wish my parents could have done is we already wanted mentor. So we did not feel totally lost when we ventured the field our parents never been, like college or even studying abroad. It's totally something new, and we struggled a lot and make so many mistakes and feel like wasting time. So for instance, when I went to graduate school and I went to prestigious university in South Korea, and I was shocked, all of my classmates, their parents are lawyers and doctors, and they already have a good connections. So they knew how to prepare their studies, what kind of gestures they have taken. They knew to make a conversation with the people with the rank. And we had no idea, and then I desperately avoid those people as much as possible. And the situation is the same when I started to study in the US as well. So I think if I could be more brave and find the pathway to build up what I could achieve, and I would not waste that much of time, and my sister is the same. But this, what I'm afraid now when I'm looking at my daughter is there must be something she'd like to achieve. But because of my limitation, I even cannot imagine that is even possible.
Yeah.
So I know when I told my parents, I like to study this and that, and my parents said, I respect your decision, but what about working as a clerk at a bank? Is a very stable job, and as a parent, you do not make a mistake in numbers. Your life will be fine. And now I can see my parents thought what is ideal life in their own observation. So even though there might be good job for Dana someday she can achieve, but at the same time, do I make some boundaries that rather hamper her desire or ambition to do something because of lack of my experience and imagination. So that is something I'm worried about often.
Yeah. Well, I think you started the conversation talking about when you were younger, the need for mentors. There's a field you don't know. I would be the same way. It's like, for example, when I hear, so I'm older, and people talk about their retirement plans and where they're investing their money and their stocks, and I don't know anything about that. But I should. Had I had mentors and models, it broadens your world, what's possible. So that. Of course, it could be broadened to things that are not good for you. That's possible too. But I still think the conversation with children manages that. I sort of have a different experience with my 3 kids, especially my youngest. She got a full scholarship to Case, everything paid for. Then she went to Columbia Teachers College. So she was set to really arise in the field of education. Within 10 years, she had 6 little girls. Well, you better forget about a job if you've got 6 girls, and she had triplets. So you have 6 girls within a 4.5 year period.
Wow.
So what are you gonna do? You're gonna pursue your dreams? No, you're not. All you can do is take care of your family, period. That's all the time she had. So it's kind of the other. So in this regard, we had a lot of time with her because you gotta rethink your whole life. And it's the conversation, I guess that's what I'm getting at, is with your parents, maybe with some mentor, that helps you understand, are you fit for this? Are you fit for that? And maybe you're stuck with something because there's circumstances in life. You're stuck with something. And it's conversation with somebody loving that helps you think through everything. Because what you don't want is people just get overwhelmed, either in a wrong direction, they have the wrong aspirations, maybe instead of thinking logically, their greed got stirred up inside of them, or power got stirred up inside of them, instead of something more noble. And it's the conversation. So like with your daughter, you kind of put your thinking, well, maybe she's interested in a field, she wants to be an astronaut, and neither of you know anything about being an astronaut. But together you could say, let's look into that. What kind of school, what kind of education, what lifestyle comes with it. Let's look at all the aspects of it. Does it seem to fit you? And be same thing with that, I want to be an actor, Mom. I want to try my skills in New York. And you're thinking, this is not so good. Well, let's find out about it, honey. Let's find out where you would go to school. Let's find out about the good things. Let's find out about the bad things. And then you decide, is this the pathway you want? And so you've helped her look at the pros and cons of the whole thing. So even then, if she makes a decision, she's got ownership of it. She doesn't enter a world where she's tossed to and fro, especially something like entertainment. And it's the partnership. And attaching them to the right things. Sometimes if she wanted to be an astronaut and you and your husband thought, what can we do with this? And you start asking around, where can we make connections? Where could we put her? What kind of summer program could she do? Where could she discover things? So you sort of replace the mentor with your conversation with her and working together. She's just a little girl, but you have more experience of how to plug in. So like in the case of your mom and dad, mine were the same way. It was a totally working class neighborhood, completely. My dad even argued with me when I wanted to go to college. He said, why? You could get a good job at Ford Motor Plant. Health insurance, retirement, everything. So I said, no, I want to go to school. But so even if in that environment your parents didn't know what to do, they still can talk. You still can have a conversation and respect the things you might want to do. Let's explore it together, honey. Let's look at what is possible. And then you're giving them the mature outlook on life, beyond your own life, but giving them tools to have the agency and the ownership. I think you could still manage, even though we might be limited in our personal history, and we want our children to do more than us. We want them to go way beyond us if we can. But it's more profitable if we're a part of that conversation, guiding them all the way forward. I saw lots of examples of this. This is 50 years I've been working with young people. And that's what I noticed about the families who are very successful with their children, is they both give them freedom while still being tightly connected, so that they can steer. And yes, you have certain, you may say, no, you are going to get at least, let's say, a graduate degree. As a baseline, honey, you can do it anything you want, but you're gonna do that much. They steer, and then they can take their hands off, and the children will go in different directions, but you've put a kind of thinking in them so that they have ownership of their life, they know how to think through things, so that they grow, even if it's something you know nothing about. It's probably not just your parents who didn't know something more. I think every parent is like that. You want to do something, and then you put that on your children, but your world is small. So you're always judging, well, no, you can't do that. Well, how do you know? They have to discover that, then they will own it. But they own it with your way of looking at the world that will allow them to, no matter what they go into, to still make wise decisions. Even if they go to Hollywood, there's people there who are solid.
That's really helpful. Other thing is, my daughter is not talkative at all.
Yeah.
She always has like, what's the best part of the day? If I give any question, she's you know that. And
That's normal.
That turns out in the other conversation. So I like to know the skills to continue on the conversations. So.
And in this case, with someone with a daughter your age, these things don't mean, they really don't want to share. They don't want to talk about school or anything. They haven't come to that point. That as important decisions arise, see, they don't want you to be nosy about every part of their life. I'm okay, Mom, I'm okay. So it really occurs, these conversations occur as there are decisions. Like maybe the first will be where to go to high school. So starting in the 7th grade, okay, what kind of things would you like to do when you're in high school? Let's make a list first. Oh, they'll love to do that. What are the kind of activities you'd like to do? Let's make a list. And we're gonna go look at the schools, where's the best place for you? So now that means something to them. When you're checking about their daily work in elementary and middle school, just I'm doing fine, don't bother me. It's not really life structuring. I think the responsibility piece is, but I don't see that being an issue in your home, where you have to do things, you have to do them and do them well. That's more at the stage, with younger children. Too often I see kids either don't have responsibility, nor do they want to, whatever their responsibility is, to do it well, to be proud of their work. That's already big in elementary and middle school. If a student can learn that, then the big decisions will come, one by one. So with your daughter, it's early. So she says, "Oh, don't bother me." That's kind of normal. Well, did you do well? Did you do well on your writing? Yes, I did. Okay, good, very good. That's about the only check they want from you.
Yeah.
And that's quite normal.
That's very helpful.
Oh, good. Yeah, okay. Good. I'm glad it's helpful.
I'm glad I made it and have a very special consultation session.
Yeah.
I'm grateful because I missed